I got together with this drummer, and we would play at the school assemblies, and I didn't know what I was doing. And so I did that. I was a terrible student as far as my teachers thought. I was kind of a wild guy. So then my friend said, I want to play at a house party. And so I played at the house party, and I was about 12. They served us booze, and so I said, this is what I want to do.
You're listening to Mr. Radio, and I'm your host, Marshall. If you're a jazz vinyl purist, you know the thrill of the hunt. You know what it's like to flip through dusty crates at 6 a.m. looking for that one holy grail press. A record that didn't just capture a moment in time, but completely pushed the boundaries of what acoustic jazz could be. In 1987, a blistering quintet-turned-septet stepped into a New York studio and cut a self-titled record that has since become a cult classic among rare vinyl collectors worldwide, Ululation. Driven by the fierce compositions of baritone saxophonist John Lee Krasnow and anchored by the explosive trumpet of Art Blakey's own Valery Ponomarev, this album unleashed a massive four-horn wall of sound. But standing dead center in that legendary wall of sound, trading fiery licks and bringing a fierce Boston-bred energy to the tenor saxophone, was Jerry Vejmola.
I grew up in an era when, if you got together with people, they would play instruments and stuff like that. And, kids in the neighborhood would do talent shows and stuff like that. So just like backyard talent shows. I don't even know if I played an instrument. I probably sang or something. I was probably about 4 or 5 or something.
Was the saxophone your first instrument? What was your first instrument?
I started on clarinet. My parents used to watch the Lawrence Welk show, and so Pete Fountain was on there. He was a big influence. And then when it came time for lessons, the kid next door played guitar, and a Hawaiian steel guitar, and I wanted to play that. My father said, no, you're going to play the clarinet. So I said, okay, I didn't care.
So were you a fan of Pete Fountain's Dixieland style music?
Yeah, I was a fan of that, yeah.
Fountain.
And rock at the time,
What kind of rock did you like?
Well, but back in those days, it was like, you got to remember, this is like the 50s, 58, 50s. So, I liked R&B. James Brown, Bobby Lou Bland, those kind of things. Temptations.
Did you have a record player, or were you listening to the radio?
No, record player.
What was the first record you ever recall listening to?
It was called, I think it was called something like, it was Buddy DeFranco, Odessa or something like that. I remember I hated it. I gave it to my friend. And then about a year later, I said, let me check that out again. And I got it back from him, and I listened to it. And then I got into more of the jazz thing. And then I kind of got records by Jerry Mulligan and those kind of things. I didn't know what to buy. In those days, I could go in the record store and hang out all day long and play records. I don't know if they had that here in the East Coast. But
no, they would have little booths, or you could put headphones on and listen to your records.
Yeah, but in the town I lived, I could do it all day long, if I wanted to.
Were you self-taught, or did you take classes? How did you learn?
Oh, this is interesting. Well, I first started with a guy named Don Walton. I think his name was Walton. He was a trombone guy. My father got him for me, and I was a terrible student. And then when I was about 13, I started studying with Matt Schoen, and he was a big influence. And Matt Schoen is the father of Neil Schoen, the guitar player with Journey. Actually, I used to give Neil oboe lessons when I was about 19 or something. He was about 14, I guess. But then he wanted to play guitar.
Oboe is probably up there in difficulty, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say everything's difficult, but it's one of the hard ones.
Yeah.
It's been voted as the hardest, but...
To show my ignorance, until I started researching for this, I didn't realize that a saxophone was a woodwind. I always thought, it's brass. It's got to be a brass instrument.
Well, they called it woodwind because it had a reed, and the reed made it a woodwind. I don't think there was ever any wood to sax.
What made you decide to change to the saxophone? Or I understand you play both saxophone and clarinet.
Yeah, I play all the woodwinds except for the bassoon.
And why not the bassoon?
Just too late in life, and it's just I'm so involved in the saxophone and the oboe. I just don't. Because I play with the symphony orchestra here in Boston, the community orchestra. And it's a good orchestra. The music's very difficult, so all my practice time is to those two instruments. So the clarinet's kind of on the backside also.
How do you switch from playing for a symphony orchestra to playing for jazz? Is that a difficult switch?
Because I played jazz first, I was pretty, such a novice. It just happened. It was a fluke. I was doing a show, and there was an oboe part, and I had played oboe in college. I had stopped for like 25 years. And I said, oh, let me try the part on oboe. I still had the oboe, and I played it. And this lady, about 2 months after I started practicing it, she called me up and says, "Can you come and play first oboe in the Weymouth Symphony?" And I said, "Lady, look, I've only been playing for 2 months." And she goes, "Well, it can't be that bad." So she said, "It's just Christmas music." So I said, "Okay, I'll do it." So I went down and did it. It was really easy. So I did it, and afterwards she came up to me and she said, it sounded pretty good. Would you like to play second oboe in the Quincy Symphony? And so I said, "Yeah, sure," because, I thought it was going to be easy, like the job that I did, the Christmas concert. But when I got there, these guys were like, one step from the symphony. And I was really terrible. They never got rid of me. So I've been there like 30 years, still learning.
And do you find it difficult to switch to jazz? I mean, what's the mindset?
Yeah, because what happens is, I'm more of, because of jazz, I have a jazz dialect, and it's kind of like I swing my 8 notes a lot of the times, even though I don't know. It's like a person that has a southern drawl and they don't realize it. So I won't realize it until they say, "Hey, you're swinging your 8s. You got to play it more straight." I thought, "Oh, okay. I have to start being aware of my 8 notes." Whereas if a classical person played jazz, I would have to say, "Oh, you're playing the 8s too strong, too straight. You need to swing a little bit more." The difference between a jazz 8 and a straight 8 is jazz 8, the first note is a little longer than the second note. So it's like da da, whereas classical music should be da da da, very straight. The jazz is da 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 da. It's a little longer without getting too corny.
If Pete Fountain was your inspiration for the clarinet, who was your saxophone inspiration?
Well, when I first started playing saxophone because at that time, when you went to parties or everybody played like standard tunes or early rock tunes. This is way before the Beatles and all that stuff. It was like Honeycomb. You ever heard the tune Honeycomb?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There was those kind of tunes, it was, really early rock. And so, I used to play, I got together with this drummer, and we would play at the school assemblies, and I didn't know what I was doing. And so I did that. I was a terrible student as far as my teachers thought. I was kind of a wild guy. So then my friend said, I want to play at a house party. And so I played at the house party, and I was about 12. They served us booze, and so I said, this is what I want to do.
Did you read music, or you?
Yeah, I kind of. I'm a little dyslexic, but I'm not the greatest reader, but I can read.
Being dyslexic kind of fits into playing jazz, doesn't it?
I don't know. I guess maybe that's why.
Sort of help you with.
I just wanted to improvise everything. That's why my band teachers would get crazy with me. They didn't have marching band, and I would just make up my own stuff.
You do a lot of improvisation with jazz?
Oh yeah. When I lived in New York, basically that's all I did. I went to jam sessions, and then I went out. I got a friend of mine was on Buddy Rich's band, and he was leaving, and he recommended me to go, and I had never done anything like that before. That was a traumatic experience, but I lasted on the band. Buddy seemed to like me, and so I did that I did it for 2 months, and then I left. I had to take care of some business. And then I went on again for another 4 months on that band. Usually everything I got was through friends. And then my best friend was working with Jack McDuff, the organist. And that's Jeff Hittman. He was working with Jack McDuff, and so he got me with Jack McDuff, and we did that for about two months. Musically it was great, but the other part of it was pretty out.
You mentioned Jeff Hittman. I believe he was also in the Ululation band, was he not?
Right.
Yeah,
Well, it was. Yeah, I guess you'd say it was, I don't know. It wasn't really a band. It was a recording.
because I've been trying to get in touch with all the musicians, and do you know if Jeff Hittman is still...
Oh, no, he passed away in '95.
You mentioned Buddy Rich. What was it like playing in that band?
Very intense. Well, first of all, he was like crazy almost. I mean, we were in the Army. You know what a drill sergeant's like? Yeah, he's like a drill sergeant. He would flip out on the band and fire us every other night. We'd get fired. So we got 2 weeks' notice, and he'd get crazy. But he just wanted the band to sound good, and so it was great for me. I mean, it's just got me on my toes. I had to learn the music, and it's something I had never done before. I didn't even know what it was about. I mean, I heard the name Buddy Rich, but I had no idea how intense it was. And then we traveled all over the world.
He would fire you and then rehire you the next day?
He'd fire the whole band.
And then rehire them?
And then rehire us, yeah, the next day.
That must have been pretty nerve-wracking.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, after the job, everybody ran to the bar just to wind down. But he was cool to me. I mean, like, I had this one solo thing with him. It was actually with him on this West Side Story, and I kept screwing it up every night. And I went up to him and I said, "Buddy, I keep screwing up this part. Probably if I hadn't said anything, you wouldn't have known the difference. But I said, I'll give you $20 every time I screw up." And he said, "Hey, relax, Vejmola, smoke a joint." So it's like I wasn't going to relax and smoke a joint on that band. It was too intense. It was too much intense. I mean, extremely fast tempos. The guy was an amazing drummer. I mean, if you know anything about him.
And so you got that gig through friends, through...
I think I've got every gig through a friend.
You also played with Aretha Franklin, Tito Puente, Buddy Rich. We've talked about.
Well, Tito Puente, I subbed for a friend, so I did it quite often. But it was a weird. I mean, in those days, it didn't really pay much money. It paid like $25 a night, 40 on Saturdays, and we used to play these Latin clubs. It was all night long. You get there. You'd say the job starts at 12 and it's 2 sets, but you do the first set at 12 and the second one at 6 in the morning. So these people would dance all night long. And then they'd have other bands there also. So it was rough, but I did that for a while. I subbed for this guy, Ed Palermo, who's writes music and plays saxophone. And it was an experience. And then, what was the other question? Aretha Franklin.
Yeah.
That all came about when I moved to Boston. A friend of mine hooked me up with some of the contractors in Boston. So every summer, well, not only every summer, but a lot of the jobs came in town. I got called to be the backup guy. I didn't go on the road with them. When they came into town, I was a backup.
What kind of energy was there on the stage when you were playing with these people?
It depends on who it was. Aretha Franklin, it was great energy. It depends on the sound guy. Sometimes these sound people are so loud that they ruin it. But I did a couple with Aretha that were really, sounded really, because she sounded really good, the band sounded good. I would say the most musical guy that I worked with was Johnny Mathis.
In what way?
He'd have violins, strings, and he was just a tremendous singer. I mean, his ears, I think he had perfect pitch or something. He could hear anything. And he just knew how to sing a song. He wasn't like a lightweight. Definitely a great singer. And I just worked with him up to this last year, and then he retired because he's like almost 90 or something.
Do you ever have to play the sax and the clarinet at the same gig?
Oh, I had to play. I played oboe with. I would play like saxophone, clarinet, flute, and oboe. And then on Johnny Mathis, you have a lot of oboe solos. So very high pressure chair. It's the highest pressure chair. That and the French horn, because I don't know if you think about anything about the French horn, but it easily cracks notes. And if you crack a note in those kind of jobs, they'll never hire you again. So.
The only instrument that I ever took classes for in junior high school was the flute, and I was the only guy in the class, and I decided I'm not going to do the flute. And then later on, when I got older, I saw a jazz flautist, and I realized this was a guy. I should have kept on going with the flute, but I think it's too late.
Well, it's never too late unless you pressure yourself, But if you just want to enjoy. I mean, now I play mostly for my own enjoyment. I get together with people and play. I'm not into. I don't do the Facebook promoting myself with gigs, concerts. People still call me to do, weird gigs. I would say weird gigs. They call them GB, just general business, like a wedding or at a restaurant or something like that. Most of those are like backing up a Frank Sinatra singer or something like that.
In addition to doing gigs, you're also a dedicated private instructor in Lexington and Concord. What's the most common fundamental mistake you see young woodwind players make when they're trying to learn jazz improvisation?
Well, most of my kids are like in the 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. Not too many of them are jazz. Let's see, in Lexington, that was mostly Asians. I get some occasionally. It's mostly just getting kids wanting to play, period. I mean, sometimes you get some that are really talented. You just help them with their band music and stuff like that. And I don't really work in any schools that are like heavy-duty jazz department or anything. There are schools here that are like that. There was one. The Lexington was a very heavy school where they had this teacher, Jeff Leonard, and he was fabulous. The kids loved him, and he turned out some of the best musicians, kids that went on to become musicians, and also, players, award-winning band. But he just retired a few years ago, so everything fell apart. That's what happens. The good guys, they retire, and then they have to start all over again.
Do you ever think of working with older students, older adults?
Well, I get some of those, too. I mean, I've had them up to 80 years old. Because at that time, I wasn't 80. Now I'm almost 80.
The ones who are 80, do you think they are trying to copy somebody that they've been listening to? How do you deal with that?
Sometimes I'll give them transcriptions or something. Some of them just want to play, put on play along records, just improvise, playing like that, with a sound system. Nothing really, anybody really serious.
I heard you play, and you didn't like what I heard, but I liked it, at the Cafe Mocha in Lynn, Massachusetts. That was one of your local gigs that you did with Eugene Maslov on piano and Bruce Gertz, I believe, on bass, and Jim Latini on drums. Was that a group that you had formed? Or
No. What that was is they were playing there as a trio, and Eugene said, why don't you want to come down and sit in? And so I said, sure, I'll come down. And so I came down and sat in, but then the guy, I don't know if he was trying to promote it or something. I guess he made that as a video. So then what happened with Eugene is that they were there for a few more weeks, and then it ended. That was the end of that, and I don't know if the restaurant's still there. Because I think that was before COVID, way before COVID.
No, the Cafe Mocha is history. I tried to research that it's history. So are there any other local scenes around that you play in?
Well, now I just started working like Friday nights up in Providence, Rhode Island, a place called Federal Hill. So I go to an Italian section. And I've been working with the singer where he sings, we open up like 2 songs, we'll play some jazz songs, and then he does like Frank Sinatra, or he'll do Willie Nelson, and, I just kind of back him up. It's an outdoor restaurant kind of situation,
How long have you been in New England?
Oh, so I came in here in 80, either 89, or maybe 90, 91.
Has the music scene changed a lot in that time?
Oh, yeah. Well, the problem with it is all the guys that I work for died. So now it's a whole new young group of people. So I'm kind of forced out. My connections all died or left town or retired or whatever. So I'm not in that scene anymore as far as getting gigs like with the Temptations or any of that stuff. That's kind of, if I get a call for that, I'd be very surprised. Even though I think the last one I got called for was Frankie Valli. That was like last year. But I used to do them all summer long, one after the other.
I recently discovered a jazz funk album that you played on, Weldon Irvine's The Sisters. Can you tell me a little bit about that album? That's
interesting also. I started playing with the Weldon's group. Weldon's group at the time was these guys from Queens. They called them Sosa Cats. And it had people, I don't know if you know who Marcus Miller is. He's a bass player with Miles Davis. And Omar Hakim, he's also a very well-known drummer. And Tom Brown, trumpet player, and they were all very young. They were, and Marcus was like high school age, but they were phenomenal musicians. And so, and Weldon was older than the other guys, but he was more like my age. And he kind of took all those kids under his wing, and he wrote this song called "Liberate a Brother" for Horace Silver Records. We would play the black clubs, and then we did it thing down in Virginia. We played some big jazz festival there at some Coliseum. I remember with Nancy Wilson and stuff. And then I don't ever remember going into a recording studio and making a record with Weldon. So I think Weldon always carried a tape recorder, taped everything. So I think he made it from that. I think it's a live recording. I don't remember ever going in the studio. I mean, it was so long ago. It was like, what, 83?
In Discogs, you are listed as one of the members of the band on that album.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He must have He must have recorded it with his boombox. I never heard it, so I don't know what it sounds like.
Can we get back to Ululation? I have a little personal tie to that album, and we may have met 40 years ago. Do you recall ever going with the band to record in a high school TV studio in northern New Jersey?
No. That must have been the second record.
No, first record. Anyway, if you were there, I was there too. So
you sure it was the first record?
Yep.
I know we recorded in New York, and it was down near the Village. I remember they freshly painted the place, so we were all choking on fresh paint.
How did you get involved with that group?
Oh, well, I had a studio in New York at Charles Colin, where originally I went there to rent to practice, and then it's kind of like, I got to know people there, and so I kind of started renting a studio. It was my studio, full time. It was cheap, and other musicians would come in there and rent studios, and John Krasnow would come in, and he rented a studio, and he was next to me. His room was next to mine. So we got to know each other pretty well, and so then he said he was going to do this record, and he asked me if I would do it with him. And I said, yeah, and then I guess I got Jeff on it, because I don't think he knew Jeff. I don't know if Jeff helped him to get Valery and, what's the girl's name?
Janice
Friedman. I don't know if Jeff got her, because Jeff knew a lot of people, because he was from New York, So so that's how we got Valery, and I knew Valery, but I didn't get Valery. I think either John got him or, and then the bass player was a friend of John's from Vermont or Maine, something like that. I don't even remember his name. Is his name on there?
Will Patton.
So who have you interviewed so far?
Eric Galetz.
Eric Galetz was also part of the Charles Colin Studios, and so played trombone, piano, and I think he was writing jingles at that time. Taro and Jeff were friends, and I met Taro through Jeff, and they had a loft together, and we used to go down there and play right down by the World Trade Center, about a block away. And we played there for quite a few years, and then Jeff started going to Key West and hanging out down there, and I think Taro went down there too. I'm not sure, but I kind of lost contact with Taro. And Jeff and I had been going to Japan, playing in Japan, touring in Japan, and then I got Jeff on it. He wanted to do it, so we went together, and that was crazy. And Jeff kind of got he had asthma, and he kept forgetting to take his medicine, so that's how he passed away. He forgot to take his medicine and had an asthma attack.
When you were playing in Japan, were you playing with was it Yoshitaka Umesato, who was the drummer?
I don't even remember what his name was. We didn't get along. No, Uematsu.
He was the drummer.
No, not Taro. You're not talking about Taro.
I was talking about. Valery Ponomarev, the Russian trumpet guy.
Oh, Valery. No, I never went to Japan with him.
No, but not with the drummer either.
No, not with the drummer. I know. I went by myself and played with Japanese musicians.
How did you get those gigs?
I had studied with Steve Grossman. I don't know if you know who that is. So I studied with Steve, and Jeff and I both studied with Steve. I got Jeff with Steve, and Steve was playing in Japan. And so the drummers, Steve couldn't go, and so the drummer asked, and Steve recommended me. You know, I sent him a tape, and he booked some gigs, you know. And then he knew of Jeff, because Jeff had made a record on Mosaic, and somehow it got to Japan, and so he wanted Jeff to come too. You know, so we both went to Japan. It was an experience. We slept in strangers' houses, and it was bizarre.
And how long were you in Japan?
Well, I went like 4 times, about a month or 2 each time. So maybe 3 times I went.
When you had to play with the other saxophone players, was it hard to work that, to play together well?
Well, I mean, Jeff and I had been playing together for years. Ever since he was the first guy I met in New York, and he was a very interesting guy. I mean, the first thing he says to me was, I met him on the street. Well, I'd heard him play before walking, because I lived in Greenwich Village. And walking through the village, one time I heard this guy on saxophone. I said, "Oh, this guy sounds really good." I said, "Kind of sounds like me." And then I had a lesson with Steve one day. Steve came to my apartment, and as I was leaving, I ran into Jeff walking down the street, and he said to me, "You want to go to John Coltrane's apartment?" I said, "Sure." So we went he took me up to 103rd Street, and we went in there, and this guy, trumpet player, Lonnie Hilliard, was living in there now, so we just kind of looked at the apartment and went, "Oh, that's cool." And then we became best friends, for years, till he passed away,
Was John Coltrane an inspiration for you?
Big, very big, totally. Probably definitely the biggest.
In what way?
I learned a lot of his solos and transcribed a lot of his solos and tried to copy his sound. I mean, most saxophone players, are influenced by Coltrane. But then I also had other people like Gene Ammons and Sonny Stitt. I mean, I got a chance to play with Sonny Stitt quite a few times, and he was super nice to me, and he's I just idolized the guy. He's such a great saxophone player, I mean, those guys in that era was something else. They were just the Babe Ruths of the music, just amazing talents, just to be able to be in their presence and listen to them play or play along with them or have them give you pointers and stuff like that. It was really great.
Do you have anything on your bucket list that you'd like to do?
No. I'm kind of gotten to the point now is, the young players today, they're on Facebook and they promote themselves. And when I grew up, it was kind of like, if somebody liked you, they hired you. You know what I mean? You didn't go out and promote yourself like kids do today. And I'm not that kind of person to promote myself, so I just I don't do that. I have some friends that I play with, and if somebody calls me for a job, I do it. But I'm not a big fan of jazz audiences because most people don't like jazz.
You think so?
I think so. I think you play in a club and they just kind of go like, "Can you play softer?" They always got something to say. So it's like, or can you play something more modern, some pop tunes? They always come up with something. I got the vibe that jazz is usually background music, as long as you don't offend anybody. But if you get up there and play, Jeff and I had a job. This is great. Jeff and I had a job out by the airport, And on the way, this guy, Orville Harrison, he got the job for us, bass player. And he said, on the way, he says, we're going to be here forever because, this is going to, so it's supposed to be a jazz job. So we get there, we set up on the bandstand. Now, Jeff and I were, learning Steve Grossman stuff, which was pretty out at the time. And so on the first tune, we started playing, and we took a solo. And first of all, we noticed that there wasn't really a jazz club. It was more like a mafia bar or something.
Uh-huh.
So the club owner comes up to us on the first tune, and he goes, you may be ahead of your time, but you're chasing my custards out of the club. So he threw us off the bandstand. And then the other guys tried to save the gig, but it was hopeless.
We're slowly coming to an end here. I really wish you had some clips that you'd like to share of you playing or anything like that, but I know you don't want to do that. So
yeah, I'm not a big fan of myself.
I think you sound good. What I heard, I thought you sounded good. Many artists, I guess, aren't big fans of themselves. But if you ever have the opportunity to send me a file of some music I can add, I'd love to add it to the show.
Yeah. I mean, there's some things on YouTube, but usually mostly with big bands. I was doing a lot of big bands, things. I played with this Kenny Hadley big band for the last 30-some-odd years, but he just passed away a couple of years ago. So I'm on some concerts on YouTube, but not too much stuff. I got involved in teaching mostly because I needed to survive. I knew I couldn't survive playing. If you play piano or bass, you probably can survive playing jazz, but not playing a horn unless you're really an aggressive guy. If you really have your package together, your promo kit and stuff like guys like Greg Abadi, alto player. He promotes himself. He does very well, but it's a lot of work. It's easy for me to teach. Just sit with some young kids and tell them jokes.
Well, Jerry, I'm so happy that you were able to take the time to speak with me, and I hope to hear from you again real soon.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Bye.
All right, bye.
You've been listening to Mr. Radio, and I'm your host, Marshall. This program was written and produced by Marshall. Our theme music was played by Ululation. Mr. Radio is available wherever you get your podcasts, including iTunes and Spotify. Subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. And don't forget to tune in next week for another episode of Mr. Radio.